Atlas Boeing 767 Cpat Review Power Plant Controls. Fuel control switches. You select run, verify spar valve light momentarily illuminates. If the valve fails to illuminate or does not extinguish, maintenance entry required and maintenance action is required. The Thrust Management Computer, TMC, calculates a reference N1 according to current thrust limit mode. The limit is displayed as an N1 target bug and the green digital readout above the N1 gauge. The thrust reference mode can be selected by the TMSP or by the FMC, and it's displayed above the N1 gauges. TMC calculates N1 using existing pressure, altitude, and temperature in the air data system. Possible results are TO, maximum rated takeoff, D-TO, assumed temperature takeoff, climb, climb 1, climb 2, cruise, continuous, and go around. In VNAV, the FMC controls thrust to the active vertical flight path. It sends thrust settings to the TMC as an N1 bug, and the N1 bug displays in magenta for FMC determined values. To manually set the N1 bug, pull up the manual thrust reference set knob. Manual appears in the N1 thrust reference display and the bug slews to 104%. You seldom use the manual setting. The outer knob allows selection of left or right for setting the thrust. The auto throttles do not respond to manual N1 values. When the inner knob is pulled out, the auto throttles remain in the active TMC mode. TMSP remains operable, and the auto throttles respond to TMSP mode changes. But the selected thrust reference mode displays are inhibited. The reference N1 bug, the N1 mode are blanked and reverses displayed when reversers are deployed. VTO is the assumed temperature takeoff. The temperature can be selected by entering on the takeoff reference page in the CDU. This is the primary means of setting it, where it can be selected using the dial on the TMSP. The temperature appears on the ICAS and on the CDU reference page. If displayed assumed temperature defaults to lower than planned, verify that the N1 meets or exceeds the plan and use the displayed assumed temperature for takeoff. Note the TMSP logic will not allow takeoff thrust to be lower than the climb thrust. During takeoff, after auto throttles are engaged, the thrust lever is advanced to set the target thrust. Power must be properly set by 80 knots. You must verify the value and be prepared to adjust thrust manually. Auto throttles engaged throttle hold mode at 80 knots. Throttle servo is inactive so the pilot can move the thrust levers. In all cases, up to thrust hold, the captain must guard the auto throttle disconnect in the event that a rejected takeoff becomes necessary. After takeoff, normally above acceleration height, the selection of thrust, speed, VNAV, or filch will automatically engage the climb mode. We normally select VNAV or filch. Select climb on the TMSP if it is not automatically engaged. The EEC switches have a normal and alternate mode. Self-powered when the engine is operating. Computes the max thrust limit. Amber line on the inner arc of the N1 gauge shows the limit. You always have available thrust to this limit with the thrust levers pulled forward. This limit provides overspeed and overboost protection. EE switches are normally in normal and the alternate mode is dark. The white command sector on the N1 display shows the difference between the commanded N1 and the current N1. The ICAS left or right EEC mode message displays if a fault is detected in the EEC. It automatically switches to alternate mode if detected. Alternate mode can be engaged by manually selecting with the EEC switch. In any case, when alternate mode is engaged, the EEC switch light will display alternate and have an ICAS left or right engine EEC mode. Two types of switching. A soft alternate, the EEC automatically switches to alternate while the switch remains in normal. At a fixed thrust lever position, the thrust does not change. A hard change is made by selecting alternate on the switch, and N1 may increase, so thrust should be reduced before pushing the switch. Thrust protection is not provided in alternate mode, and max rated thrust is reached before the thrust levers are full forward, so an overboost can occur. The EEC will never provide an EGT over temp protection. Minimum idle is the lower setting used for ground ops and flight, except during approach and landing. Approach idle is select higher idle and is required for various system operations. Mode is automatically selected by the EEC. Selecting the engine start switch to continuous causes the engine to go into approach idle. That concludes power plant controls.